Okay, so your GMO greetings, yet I say, that means we thank you once again for tuning in. I'm Odwirafo Kwesi Ranehempata, Akan Odwirafo of Akwamu Mine, Amaruka Itivimu, that means the Akwamu Nation in North America, within Ojira Mine, the purified nation, Afuraitkaitnut people, African Black people in the Western Hemisphere. So this is a topic we wanted to address because, of course, it's the day, but we touched on it in a previous presentation back during Black History Month, Black Trustorical Month, as we will call it. We touched on it a little bit. I want to go into a little bit more detail about it because it's important. What they call Memorial Day today was started by Black people in 12,865, so-called 1865, after the Civil War. And the first Memorial Day was May 1st. This was an ancestral observance, an ancestral communication ritual observance. And it goes back to our ancestral religious practices, including hoodoo in North America, juju in North America, voodoo in North America, wanga in North America, and ganga in North America, the Golankisi, Galangichi traditions in North America. These are traditions we preserved in our blood circles, and then they show up in different aspects of our cultural expressions, sometimes overtly, sometimes covertly. So we want to show you how this is part of our ancient ancestral Afuraitkaitnut African ancestral religious ritual calendar, preserved in our blood circles in North America, and we continue the tradition. So there are a number of images in this collage. I just wanted you to see it, a little bit more clearly. So let me pull up this document. So the first Memorial Day on May 1st, 1865, a parade to honor the Union War dead took place here. This is in Charleston, South Carolina. The event marked the earliest celebration of what became known as Memorial Day. The crowd numbered in the thousands, with African-American school children from newly formed freedmen's schools, the schools established for free Afuraitkaitnut people, leading the parade. They were followed by church leaders, freed people, talking about our people, of course, Unionists, and members of the 54th Massachusetts, 34th, and 104th U.S. Colored Infantries. The dead were later reinterred in Beaufort. Now, when they talk about a parade to honor the Union War dead, what they're talking about is we joined the fight, we joined the Civil War to wage war against the whites and their offspring, to exterminate as many of them as possible, to free ourselves. Now, prior to that, we talked about the Gullah Wars before, which are misnomered the Seminole Wars. The United States government went against the quote-unquote Seminoles. That was specifically, we say the Gullah Wars, because the Gullah and Geechee people were fighting against the United States government. They were controlling a certain area. They were free, they were independent, and they were fighting the United States government. That war, you have the first and second quote-unquote Seminole Wars. That second war literally bankrupted the country. Their entire military budget was decimated because they were fighting against the Gullah, misnomer the Seminoles. When they use the term Seminole, there's no such tribe as a Seminole, quote unquote, Native Americans, or a Seminole Black. Seminole is a corruption of the Spanish term cimarron. Cimarron is where the English term maroon comes from. So if a maroon is someone who's, for example, someone marooned on an island, they're shipwrecked and so forth, and they're alone on an island and so forth. A cimarron is one who's, they'll say wild and untamed and so forth, but those are the ones who ran away. They escaped enslavement. They were called cimarrones or cimarrones, later in English, maroons, and cimarron, Cimarroon, cimarron, was corrupted into Seminole and Seminole and Seminole and Seminole. And then they started saying there were Black Seminoles, meaning Black Cimarron, Black runaways. And then they started saying there was red Seminoles or red runaways as well. But when you look at the general who was waging the war against the Seminoles, really the Gullah people, he said, surely this is a Negro war. There was some pseudo, quote unquote, Native Americans, migrant Asians who were part of some aspect of that. But in reality, it was an Afuraitkaitnut war. It was our war for liberation to make sure that we preserved our freedom and also to liberate, our other people who were enslaved. Because we had maroon societies, we were independent, we were defending these independent maroon territories. The Seminole Nation or Gullah Nation was one of them, and we wanted to expand that. So since those wars broke the bank of the nation, that forced the Civil War to come into being. It wasn't just simply economics that some people would say. They saw that our people were erupting all over the South and parts of the North, breaking free, starting riots, leading great insurrections like the insurrection of Nana Okunfo-Yao, Nat Turner, Okufo-Kwabena, Denmark Vesey, Ogufo-Geb, which is Gabriel Prosper, and so forth. But the Seminole, quote-unquote, wars or the Gullah Wars led to the Civil War. Our people joined that effort to exterminate as many of the whites in their offspring and force the end of enslavement, which is what happened. So when they talk about here, they gloss over it. When it's a parade to honor the Union war dead, what they're talking about is there were 257 individuals who were killed and they were put in a mass grave. And our people, and they were mainly our people. When they talk about the 54th Massachusetts Infantry Regiment, the 34th and the 104th United States Colored, infantries and so forth, these were the ones who were drafted and, became part of the army and so forth to fight in the war. So when they're talking about the Union war dead, they're really talking about those Black people who were, killed during the war and so forth. And as part of our ancestral ritual tradition, we engage in the ritual practice of what we call Nsama Nkom, ancestral communication, but we prepare proper burials for them. The first name of the service was the Decoration Day. The whites in our spring later called it Memorial Day when they shifted it from May 1st to the last Monday of May, and called it Memorial Day. But we called it Decoration Day because we decorated the graves, the tombs of our deceased, and we engaged in ritual communication, ancestral communication, as Afuraitkaitnut people. Now, this is an image of the children on that first day. And, they were leading the way in the march and so forth. So when we talk about ancestral communication, let's look at what we're actually touching on. And it's very important because first we want to talk about ancestral communication, but then we want to talk about the date, the shift from May 1st to the end of May. May 1st is a sacred ritual observance for our people that has been for thousands of years. That particular time of the year, 40 days after the spring equinox, the balancing point of the year, 40 plus days after that, we have another ritual sacred observance that is in the Gregorian calendar. That's May 1st. That's why it's a sacred time frame. And this is why we established that sacred ancestral observance on that day. But the whites in our spring moved it to the end of May. But first, let's look at what are we talking about when we talk about ancestral communication? Okay. So this is one of the articles that we put forward. For those who are unaware, I've published 31 books, over 100 articles, 2 documentary films. You can watch both documentary films for free on our YouTube page. In fact, let me show you. We're going to get into this a little bit in a few minutes. This is the most recent book I published. It's a 600-page book, ODWIRASEM Trustorical Anthology, 8.5 by 11. It is available now. We have a discount for our subscribers, an automatic 30% discount. But we'll get into that. But one of the 100 plus articles that we published is dealing with this notion of in the Akan language, Nsamain Kom. Now, Nsamain, the term for an ancestor or ancestress as an ancestral spirit in the Akan language is Samain, plural Nsamanfo. So when we talk about Nsamain Kom, Kom means spiritual communication. It can also mean spirit possession, Akom, but then there's also Nkom, which is spirit communication. And in fact, let me show you that real quick. In the Akan language, Akom means spirit possession, Nkom means spirit communication. And there are various forms of spirit communication, but if you look in the Akan dictionary, you'll see here, Kom, to dance wildly in a state of frenzy or ecstasy, ascribed by the natives to the agency of a fetish, meaning a divinity, one who is possessed and so forth. Kom comes from the contraction of ko and mu. Ko means to go and mu means within, so to go within, to enter, to penetrate, and so forth. So komu means to go within. That's why it's called possession, because the spirit possesses, penetrates, enters the body, and spirit possession takes place. You see it also says to bend, to bow, and so forth, to incline. So when someone gets possessed, we say they become heavy with the spirit. The term ndu means heavy, also medicine, and so forth, and to feel a presentiment of foreboding, spirit communication. But when someone gets possessed, komu, the spirit ko goes, move within, enters, penetrates, spirit possession takes place. The person becomes heavy with the spirit. So the bending, the bowing, the inclining, and so forth is directly related linguistically, but also conceptually and ritually. So in the process of sharing that, we also show that Kom in ancient Kemet means to bend, to bow, to submit, to bend away, and so forth. So we show that the same term in ancient Khanitic Kemet, Nubian Egypt, is the same term you find in the Akan tradition, and so forth. Now, because we're the same people who migrated west after the fall of Kemet, you see Kema, which is really pronounced Koma, means to grasp, to seize, to lay hold upon, to hold, to possess, to contain. It's actually spelled with the circular symbol here is the ka sound, the little bird, the owl. Little bird, the owl is the M sound, and the forearm with the open palm, this symbol here, is the ah. So it's really ka, ah, koma, koma. Egyptologists in the past would stick an E in between consonants if they were not sure of the vowel placement, the proper vocalization. But when we look at our languages, our living languages, we still have the same words with the same meanings. So we can properly vocalize these terms. It's not just a series of consonants. So it's not kema, it's actually koma or kom, and we can verify that. You see akom here, the state of being possessed with a fetish. That was the term in the 19th century they would use for deity, but the state of being possessed by a fetish is talking about spirit possession. So koma in ancient Kemet means to grasp, seize, possess. Akom in Akan means to possess. But nkom means spiritual or oracle communication, revelation, and so forth, a message delivered by the god or a fetish or divinity or prophet, talking about an okomfo, a priest or priestess, also an obosomfo, a different class of priest or priestess. So when we talk about akom or nkom, we have these same terms: spirit possession, akom, spirit communication, nkom. And there are different forms of nkom. So this is the same tradition that in North America, when we get possessed by an ancestral spirit, ritual drumming, ritual dancing, ritual chant, ritual prayer, ritual communication, the spirit comes down. We become heavy with the spirit, as we say in the Hoodoo tradition, get possessed by a divinity. The spirit comes, or comes down and so forth. This is what's taking place. This notion of Nsamain Kom. Nsamain is the term for ancestral spirit again. Nkom, communication. So this particular article, we were talking about ancestral communication and the 7 senses. You see here, we talk about spiritual communication, Nkom, the Nsamain Komre, which is the ancestral shrine, establish an ancestral shrine for more focused communication. There are also Abosom Komre, which are shrines for Abosom or deities, goddesses and gods and so forth. So we were talking about the fact that we have 7 senses, not just 5. You have the sense of sight, hearing, touch, feeling, taste, and smell, but you also have a sense of balance. Without your sense of balance, you wouldn't be able to sit up straight in the chair, you would fall over. You also have a sense of time. Now, the reason why we touched on that with regard to spirit communication is because there are also 7 spiritual senses. So in the article, we talk about if you have a sense of sight, you also have a sense of spiritual sight or second sight. You can see beyond the physical. So that's called clairvoyance or clairvoyeurism. You can see beyond the physical. People can see a spirit walking around. They can see a spirit moving and so forth. They can describe for you the spirit that's standing in the hallway and so forth. They're clairvoyant. Many of us have that capacity. Even as children had that capacity. And then because we were conditioned to be fearful of it or think it's something demonic or something, we suppress it until we get older. And then we break out of these conditionings and these fake religions like Christianity, Islam, Judaism, and so forth. And then we start revisiting the spiritual potencies that we had when we were younger, and we start trying to reestablish those. But you have a sense of sight. That's the physical sense. The spiritual sense is clairvoyance. You have a sense of hearing. You can hear, that's one of your senses. But there's also the spiritual sense, which is called clairaudience, meaning you can hear beyond the physical. You may not be able to see a spirit walking around, but some people can hear the spirits communicating with them. An ancestor or an ancestress, they can tell you exactly what the person is saying, the deceased spirit is saying, and so forth. They're clairaudient. They can hear from a divinity, an abosom, orisha, vodou, ntoru, and so forth. They can tell you exactly what's going on. Now, just like with sight, you can discern the differences between shapes and, colors and so forth. Just like sound, you can discern the differences between pitch and volume and everything else. Well, just like with the sense of smell, you can discern the difference between, something that's pungent, something that's, a foul odor, something that's sweet smelling and everything else. But there's a sense of smell beyond the physical. To a certain extent, you can see that with dogs and so forth. They have that super heightened sense of smell. You can give them a rag that somebody touched and, the bloodhounds can go and track that person down. But there's a sense of spiritual clairalience, meaning you can smell, that sense is beyond the physical. So when certain spirits come into a space, you may not be able to see them, you may not be able to hear them, but when they come into a space, their spiritual anatomy gives off a certain configuration of energy that generates a certain smell, and clairaliently, someone can pick up and say, oh, this particular spirit just entered into the space. Oh, this different individual, this great grandmother, she just entered into the space. She has this kind of energetic smell, so to speak. Just like we have, different people have their own specific scent, their natural body odor and so forth. And if you're in tune, just like a dog is in tune, they can smell the differences between people. Spiritually, the energy moving through you is unique to you. Just like your physical body, if you have an instrument, a trumpet, trombone, tuba, cornet, and so forth. If you blow through the trumpet, a certain configuration of sounds will come out. You put that one down, blow through the tuba, a different configuration of sounds, The trombone, different. Cornet, different. The source of air is the same, but because of the shape of the vessel, the sounds emanate different. The same divine living energy that's captured by Afurakani people, African Black people, the spirit of Ra and Ra'et, the creator and creatress, who we call in Yonkumpon and Akan and in Yonkunton, or they call Odumare and Oshumare in Yoruba, or Da and Idawedo and Vodun and so forth. That spirit moves through us, but because we have different forms physically, the way the energy moves through this physical form is different than the next person. Just like you have different sizes of wind chimes, it's the same wind moving through the space. Because the size is different and the shape is different, the sounds that emanate from those different vessels are different, even though the same energy is moving through it. So, in the same fashion, your spirit body has a specific configuration that's unique to your physical body. It's a mirror of that and so forth. When the spirit separates from the body after death, you have a unique configuration. Your spiritual anatomy is just as unique as your physical anatomy. So when the energy circulates through that unique form, it generates a certain configuration of energy that's unique to you, but also that certain smell, that spiritual, quote unquote, odor. So the clairalience, someone can pick up on that. So you have clairvoyance, clairaudience, hearing, second sight, second hearing, clairalience, smell, clairgustance, which is the sense of taste. Your taste buds discern the differences between, sour and sweet and everything else and spicy and all of that. The same thing with your spiritual sense of taste. A certain spirit comes into the room and all of a sudden you have this intense, sweet taste, experience. Then a negative individual comes into the space, a spirit comes into the space. You can't see them, you can't hear them, but you have this overwhelming sense of a sour, foul, spoiled taste inside of you is making you nauseous and so forth. You can discern the difference between what kind of spirits enter into the space based on that clear gustance. So then you have clairsentience. We can have the sense of touch. You can touch and feel something that's cold or hot or rough or soft or whatever. But the clairsentience, the sense beyond the physical sense of touch, when a spirit comes into the room, you can feel a forceful energy, a soft energy, a cool energy, a rough kind of energy. It depends on the kind of spirit and their energy complex. So that is clairsentience, feeling beyond the physical, beyond the sentient. Clairvoyance, seeing beyond the physical. Clairaudience, hearing beyond the physical. Clairalience, smelling beyond the physical. Clairgustance, tasting beyond the physical. Clairsentience, feeling beyond the physical. Then we have the sense of balance and time, which the whites and offspring don't talk about these senses. They don't really understand the connection, but we've always had this in our culture. The clear equilibrance, as we would say. A certain spirit enters into the space and you start losing your sense of balance, and you can feel the difference when certain spirits come through as opposed to other ones. That shift in balance or equilibration, the more you work with that, you can determine who's coming forward, what their mission is, what their intent is, and so forth, even with regard to divination. When you have pendulum divination and so forth, and the spirit moves in the room and it causes the pendulum to swing wildly or spin around, through the movement, the swing and so forth, you can determine the difference between what the spirit is saying, what message they have, what they're coming to do, what they're trying to warn you of. Through that, your body becomes like a pendulum. It becomes a vessel of clear equilibrance, feeling the sense of balance beyond the physical. And the final one is the sense of time. We experience this even when you go to sleep. If you're asleep, you hit your alarm for 5 minutes. The alarm goes off, you hit it for 5 minutes. You fall back asleep. Then you have a series of experiences where you're going to different places and communicating with different people and traveling to a different city. All these experiences are taking place only to be awakened by your alarm 5 minutes later. Now, in the physical aspect of time, you would not have been able to travel to these different places and have these experiences. But spiritually, the spirit moves much quicker and your sense of time shifts. some people who are not clairvoyant or clairaudient or clairgustant or clairtimiant or clairequilibrant or alien and so forth, clairsentient. When different spirits move through the space, their body begins to rock, but then their sense of time shifts. They could be sitting down, meditating for a few minutes in front of a shrine in Komre. Next thing you know, an hour and a half has passed and their entire time continuum has shifted. And there's a number of different considerations with time and space and so forth, but some people communicate through the clairvoyance sense, some people clairaudience, some people clairtimian, some people clairalien, and so forth. This is what we're talking about with regard to Nsamine Comb and the seven senses. And that is important. So we're talking about a ritual practice. And when we talk about time, this time of the year, especially the May 1st, that point in the year and so forth, that is part, as we said earlier, of a sacred ritual calendrical practice that we've preserved for thousands of years, and it was preserved in the Hoodoo tradition, as well as Voodoo and Juju and so forth in North America. So let's look at that. The advertisement we had, just to let people know that we're going to do this presentation. These are the children once again. These are men and women marching in the service and so forth. This is the plaque we read from. Now, this particular piece I want to bring up. As we said, we did a presentation talking about our ritual calendar as Afuraitkaitnut people, Black people in America. We say Amarukafo. Amaruka is the ancient term for America. It's the Ka, the land of Amaru, the plumed or feathered serpent. And that even goes back to ancient Khanid and Kemet. So America's not named after Amerigo Vespucci, or his name was Albericus, and then they changed it to Amerigo, but actually Amaruka is the title. But we wrote about that in one of our books, and we're going to talk about that. But so we use the term Amarukafo, Black people in North America, and we talk about our sacred cosmogram. Now, some people are familiar with this cosmogram because you see it, a similar one with regard to the Bakongo people. The colors are slightly different, but you see the different positions of the sun and so forth. Different groups have their own expression of the sacred cosmogram. And we talk about the different elements: Oja, which is fire; Nsuo, which is water; Asase, which is earth; Mframa, which is wind or air and so forth. In the Akan tradition, you see here the sacred Okra Komuwadie, so this golden disc. They often call it the soul washer's disc in the Akan tradition. It is representative of the Okra, the soul, the divine consciousness. Now, you will see in the Akan tradition, this is one of the attendants to the Ohini, the king and so forth, and Okrafo Guare, soul washer. So they purify the spiritual head of the Ohini, the king, or the queen mother. And you see them wearing it around the neck and so forth. But there's an entire cosmology that revolves around this sacred disc. There are different versions of it. You see the gold version of it that they will wear around the neck and so forth. But in the Adinkra symbols, the sacred symbolism of Akan people, we see a couple of these Adinkra symbols right here. The one on the right, the Okra Komuwadie, that is an Adinkra graphic representation of the gold symbol and so forth. It represents the soul, divine consciousness. The gold is representative of the energy of the Oriya, the sun. And it has to do with these four cardinal points are the points of the sun. But then you have the midpoints in between. Let me show you that right quick. You see the different midpoints. So the cross structure is the Okra, the soul, the divine consciousness. The diagonal kind of cross structure is the Sunsum, which is the spirit body. So you have the combination of the soul and spirit, the divine consciousness and the spirit body. You see these 4 points here are the midpoints and so forth. So when we look at our sacred cosmogram, you have sunrise, which is the yellow point, the sun peaking at the height, which is noon and so forth, the hottest time of the day, the sun setting, becoming gray, white, and so forth, going, quote unquote, into the underworld. And then you have the dark sun at midnight, but you also have a yellow, the point that's sunrise during the year that is akin to the spring equinox around March 20th, the balancing 12 hours of sunlight, 12 hours of darkness. Then you have the summer solstice around June 20th, the hottest time of the year, the longest day of the year, 15 hours of sunlight, 9 hours of darkness, the red, fiery sun, and so forth. Then you have the sun setting, that is the autumn equinox around September 22nd, 12 hours of sunlight, 12 hours of darkness. That is the other evening point of the year, just like the evening point at night, the even time, the evening when the sun is setting and crossing from the upper world to the quote unquote lower world, and it's the evening balancing point. Well, September 22nd is the evening point. It's like when the sun is setting and then goes into the underworld. The warm part of the year is coming to an end. It's becoming cool. You hit that balancing point, and then it starts getting cooler. Then you get to the black sun, December 20th, 21st, the winter solstice. And that is, the darkest time of the year, the coldest time of the year, 15 hours of darkness, 9 hours of sunlight. And after that happens, December 21st, 22nd, 23rd, 24th, and so forth, the sun is standing still. That is solstice, or the soul, the sun, standing still. And then around December 25th, the days begin to increase. Sunlight begins to increase around 1 minute or more per day. So the sun is born every December 25th. And of course, that's where they get the fictional cartoon character Jesus from, the fictional sun being born on December 25th every year. So, and we're going to touch on that a little bit more. But so we have this sacred cycle: sunrise, noon, sunset, midnight, autumn, spring equinox, summer solstice, autumn equinox, winter solstice, and so forth. But then we also have the midpoints, which are sacred times of the year for us. In the Ohini Eniwa symbol in our Akan culture, Ohini means king, Eniwa means eyes. The eyes of the king can see all around the nation. You have all 4 points. You have the 4 cardinal points here with regard to the solstices and equinoxes, but you also have the points of the Sunsum, the spirit body. Here you have them combined. You see the 4 cross-structure points, which represent the equinoxes and solstices in our calendar, but you also have the midpoints. And you can also see that midpoint structure within this one as well. We have some more representations of that. These sacred colors are also associated with, when we get into the cosmology of it, the substances within our body that regulate order within our body. The black substance, that black circle, that's charcoal. You have in the body, on our Sassia earth, that's the charcoal and so forth, the mineral life. In the body, that's abatum, so-called melanin. The yellow ochre in the body, that's representative of that plasma. The red ochre on earth, on our Sase, red blood and so forth. The white kaolin or chalk and so forth, that's white lymph and so forth. We have an association with the different sacred colors of Afuraitkaitnut people. We have dark brown people with red undertones, dark brown people with black undertones. In ancient Kanedi Kemet, you have the blacks and the reds, the Kametiu and the Kanesu or Deshoru and so forth. That's dark brown people with red undertones, dark brown people with the black undertones. You look at the San people, Khoikhoi and San people of South Africa, near the Kalahari Desert, brown people, dark brown people with yellow undertones and so forth. And then, of course, you have the Ofiri or Ufiri, so-called albino, people with the white undertones and so forth. But we have these same colors within our, clans, and the colors of the different deities. giving off different energy complexes and so forth. Now, let's switch over to give you a little bit more insight into the sacred nature of that structure. So in one of our courses, I mentioned that I've published 31 books, 2 documentary films, but we also have 42 online courses. And within those 42 online courses, one of them is a series of courses on the Hoodoo tradition. And in part 5 of the Hoodoo course series, it's called Insane Elemental Asceticism in the Hoodoo tradition. So the ascetic practices, fasting and, celibacy and other kinds of ascetic practices, that goes back to the priesthood and priestesshoods of ancient Khanid and Kemet and other various parts of Afuraitkaitnut. It has nothing to do with Hinduism and so forth. These ascetic disciplines we've incorporated for thousands of years. That is true in the Hoodoo tradition as well. We have elemental asceticism. And this is part of this relationship to that sacred burial practice and spirit communication. So we talked about the term insane, which has to do with straight purification. We talked about ascetic. We showed in the text of Ancient Kemet talking about this specific chapter of Arunu Pert Imheru, so-called Book of the Dead, Book of Coming Forth by Day, shall be recited, this chapter, by a person who's purified, abu, and washed, one who has not eaten animal flesh nor fish. We're talking about, in certain ritual contexts, you must abstain from meat, abstain from fish, sometimes abstaining from sexual activity, sometimes abstaining from food, period. In the context of fasting, that's evidence of the ascetic practice associated with ritual. Before you engage in this ritual practice, you have to purify your body, purge everything out, take certain herbs and so forth, cleanse yourself, no ritual, no sexual activity, no consumption of food and so forth, so you can be focused and totally in tune. That's just evidence of the ascetic practices that we've engaged in for thousands of years. So in context of that, we talk about the major holidays associated with these different sacred points of the year. And just like where birds fly south for the winter, they take advantage of the shift in energy that's taking place on Earth. They take advantage of that. Bears go into hibernation. They go into a quote-unquote stupor. They go to sleep, quote-unquote, hibernate. Their body shifts and so forth for a number of months, and then they come out of that. Crocodiles go into what is called estivation. The crocodiles in ancient Kemet in the Nile mud and so forth, they will bury themselves in the Nile mud and be there for a number of weeks, and their heart rate slows down and so forth. It's very similar to the hibernation of bears and so forth. Different flocks of birds, schools of fish. When the earth changes, we change. So there are ritual practices associated with the major shifts in energy throughout the year. Just like, especially when we came over here, we've always had this, but it was very prominent once we came over here. We came from a tropical area. So if we were enslaved in North America in July and it was 100 degrees somewhere, this is something that we're used to. But then when the shift takes place and all of a sudden something happens that never happened before, we see all of the leaves fall off of all of the trees. So all of them become barren and they start changing colors. And we're like, what's happening in this part of the world where we've never been before? Then the temperature starts to fall and it starts getting cold and we've never experienced cold. Then something else insane happens. Some white stuff starts falling out the sky and it covers the entire area. And when you get up in the morning, all the grass is gone, it's all white. All the leaves off of the trees are gone. Everything is covered with some white stuff and it's very cold. So the earth goes through a dramatic shift when you live in places like this, from 100 degrees to 10 below zero. And then the gradients in between. So we've always taken advantage of the shift in energy that Asaseafu, the fertile earth mother, is going through, and Asaseya, the barren earth mother, is going through, and we adjust to that. Where the kind of crops that we raise, that we, foodstuffs that we store and so forth for a certain period, no matter what we're doing, we engage in that physically. We purify ourselves, purge ourselves, go through fasting at certain times of the year, but also spiritually. So when you look here, we laid out the actual dates, the major points: spring equinox, summer solstice, autumn equinox, winter solstice, but the midpoints in between, 40 plus 42 days after each sacred observance is another sacred observance. These are the midpoints within the sacred cycle. In our Khan culture, we have a 42-day cycle. Every 42 days is an ancestral observance. Ogusiadai or Akwesiadai on Sundays. Every sixth Sunday, every sixth Ogusiadai is an Akwesiadai, a sacred ancestral observance. In between that, every sixth Awukuda is an Awukuadai, meaning every sixth Wednesday is an Awukuadai, or a sacred ancestral observance Wednesday, where certain rituals are, engaged in every 42 days. So here you have March 20th, 42 days after that is May 1st. That's a midpoint. June 21st, the summer solstice, 42 days after that, sacred midpoint, August 2nd. September 22nd, major observance, 42 days after that, November 1st. December 21st, sacred solstice observance, 42 days after that, February 2nd. These are part of our ritual practices, ritual sacred points in our sacred calendar, and we engage in rituals for Nsamanfo, ancestral spirits, and Abosom, deities on these sacred ritual points. The Whites in Arrow Spring, when they invaded ancient Khanid and Kemet and learned about religion from us and ritual practices and so forth, and styled their fake priests and priestesses and imams and so forth after us, and rabbis and all of that, as well as the pseudo-esotericism like Kabbalism, Sufism, Gnosticism, and all that, which is misinformation, but it's pseudo-esotericism. But they preserved some of these things in name and corrupt, misguided ritual, and it survives in the calendar today. So they will say spring, March 21st. May 1st is a sacred midpoint. They call it May Day. And it was originally the celebration of the Maypole, which was a fertility ritual, and now they just call it May Day. Summer solstice in June, August 2nd. Originally, that's quote-unquote midsummer, the Day of the Dead, but then they shifted that day to another day, but originally that's an ancestral observance and so forth. You have the autumn equinox in September, November 1st, a sacred midpoint. Once Christianity comes in, they flip it around, and now instead of being a sacred midpoint for the deities and ancestral spirits, now it's Halloween and All Saints' Day and All Souls' Day. The winter solstice, of course, they corrupted that into the fictional cartoon character Jesus, who never existed of any form or of any race. They took that cosmology from the deity Heru, and then they flipped that, to Christmas and all of that. But 42 days after that is the sacred midpoint, February 2nd, and they call that Groundhog's Day. So every sacred point, it still shows up in their calendar, but it's under a secular name that doesn't show you what originally was taking place. But for us, we have these sacred times of the day, sacred times of the year, and also it's associated with the unfolding of plant life and so forth, but also spiritually what we engage in. So sunrise is akin to sprouting, but we also engage in ritual movement. That's ritual dance and so forth, also ritual forms of movement that are similar to what you would consider yoga or Tai Chi or Qigong and so forth. But those ritual movements exist in our ancestral religious practices as well, part of the sacred ancestral dance for spirit possession for the Abosom, the deities, and the Nsamafo, the ancestral spirits. So that's sprouting, sunrise, spring equinox, ritual movement. Mid-spring, May Day, that's the maturing of the plant and so forth. We engage in meditation. Summer solstice, noon, full flowering. Exercise, also ritual movement of exercise and so forth, moving energy through the body to different muscle groups, because when you send energy to muscle groups, you're also sending blood to muscle groups. You're also sending the life force energy in the blood. So you're giving a blood offering to each one of your muscle groups, and the organs and glands associated with those regions are also being given a blood, quote unquote, sacrifice or ritual offering. You're replenishing the shrines of the deities within your body. Each one of the organs and organ systems are shrines. And let me show you that real quick. Okay. So in the Akan tradition, we talk about the NIMDEESEM, the solar, lunar, and planetary bodies that govern the 7-day week. And if you're born, for example, I'm born on a Sunday, which is Awusida. That means I'm a Kwa Asi, or Kwasi, or servant of the divinity Awusi, as you can see here. Awusi is our Sar and Kemet. Someone born on, Monday, a child of the divinity Adjoa for females, Adjoa, and so forth. And that is all set in ancient Kemet. So you have Abina, Kwabina, Kweku, Akua, Kofi, and Afua, Kwame, and Ama, Yao, Ya, and Abba, Kwesi, Akosua, Kwajo, Adjoa. These different names are the male and female names associated when we're born under the governance of on a certain day. That's proof that we were assigned to that specific divinity pre-incarnation, and we were sent into the world to carry that energy into the human sphere for our people. But each one of them are also associated with the major organs, systems of the body. These 11 major divinities govern the 11 major organ systems, 11 major body systems. They also have sacred numbers associated with them, from Ekun to Dukal, which is 1 to 11 and so forth. The solar, lunar, and planetary bodies. So we talk about ritual movement, meditation, exercise. The next one is ritual balance. The next phase is the crystallizing ritual balance. And we talk about ritual balance for a number of reasons. Seeding and harvest, sexual activity or procreative activity with your spouse to generate an expression of energy that's used for creative practices. Also, enhance your life in every aspect, but that's balanced with your complementary balance. And that's only the Afurakani man, Afuraitkaitnut woman. We don't deal with interracialism, that's self-destructive and self-hatred. The balance of Afurakani black man, Afuraitkaitnut black woman within the proper age range as well. Germination, there's also a ritual practice of abstinence, rooting, diet, the sun rising, fasting and so forth. So when you talk about, let's start from this point. The seeding, harvesting, but seeding first, germination, rooting, then the rising of the plant, it breaks through the surface of the soil, sprouting, maturing, full flowering, and crystallizing. Each one of those phases of the unfolding of plant life and so forth is also the unfolding of our behavioral cycle, our spiritual energy and so forth. So we have sacred ritual practices associated with each one of those phases throughout the course of the day, month, year, and so forth. But we also have sacred communal observances as well. And that's what we were getting at in the previous piece. So let's show the sacred communal observances. And again, these are, as we said, a Marukafo ritual calendar. Afuraitkaitnut people, African Black people, quote unquote African Americans, how we preserved our ancestral religious practices in North America, in the Hoodoo tradition, Juju tradition, and various others. Now, one of the things, for example, we wear these sacred golden discs and so forth, I have these drawings and so forth. When we were forced into North America, of course, we weren't able to, deal with goldsmithing and so forth when we were escaping from plantations. But When we looked up in the sky and saw the solar parhelion, which they also call a sundog, as you can see here, you see that circular structure around the sun and so forth. Of course, that reminded us of our sacred symbolism because that's where it comes from. In the sky, that is a representation of that Okra Komwadie, of our sacred cycle, our cosmogram that governs every facet of our lives. So you will see that we have these ritual observances. The spring equinox, how does it show up in North America? Even if some of us have forgotten traditions and so forth, we would normally go through a phase of ritual purification. In the Akan tradition, the Apo festival is an observance. Let's pull that up real quick. Spring cleaning, but Apo and Akan happens around this time, around the spring equinox and so forth. This is a shrine of a deity, Kwesi Adango, but that is a ritual observance of ritual purification for self and society. That was preserved in North America as quote unquote cleanup week. So if when you were younger in the spring break and so forth, cleanup week, not only is the space cleaned and so forth, but also purgatives like cod liver oil or different things, or fasting would take place. Fasting and praying, spirit possession, spirit communication. These are ancestral rituals. May 1st, May Day, midstream, maturing, quote unquote. That is Memorial Day. That's a sacred ancestral observance. Originally, we called it Decoration Day because it was the day for the ancestral communication. We always had that in our ancestral religious practices. It resurfaced in North America at the right time on May 1st, the sacred midpoint, 42 days after the spring equinox and so forth. And it was called Decoration Day, but it was clearly an ancestral observance. June 21st, summer solstice, full flowering. Now we have an observance that's around the June solstice. It's normally around June 20th and so forth. It's Juneteenth. And people look at Juneteenth as, that's the day that certain people in Texas were informed that they were free. But around that time, we always had that sacred observance. The fiery energy of the sun, the male and female forces of solar energy and so forth that we would invoke. Juneteenth is really the summer solstice preserved in our culture. August 2nd, the Day of the Dead and so forth, crystallizing. The entire month of August, that's a midpoint. It starts off at the beginning of August, but we have Black August, where it's an ancestral observance where we honor the people who wage war against the whites in our spring, revolutionaries, resolutionaries, and so forth. Just like we have the entire month of Black History Month in February, which is another midpoint. August 2nd is a midpoint. Day of the Dead, ancestral observance, crystallizing, but that's honoring the fallen warriors and warrioresses and so forth. That's what's taking place. September 22nd, autumn equinox. We have a 7-day New Year observance. Our New Year is the autumn equinox. The dead of winter, January 1st, the dead of night, dark and cold. That is not a new year. Only cave dwellers from the ice would scream Happy New Year when it's dark, dead, and cold. For us, the New Year's spring equinox or the autumn equinox, actually the autumn equinox is the seeding or conception time, and the spring equinox is the sprouting time. But conception is the beginning, spring or sprouting is the birthing. That's the halfway point of the year. But for us, the beginning is when you drop the seed in the ground, bury it, cover it over, and a conception is taking place. That's September 22nd, 23rd. We have a 7-day New Year observance. That's the Hoodoo New Year. Akan people in Ghana, Ivory Coast celebrate the New Year for 7 days around that time and so forth. So 40 days after that, 42 days is November 1st. That is actually the Voodoo New Year in North America. That's sacred midpoint. December 21st, the winter solstice. That's the time of Alsar, Set, and Heru, and so forth. And that resurfaces for us during what is the Kwanzaa event. And of course, when we did a deep dive into that, we find that Kwanzaa was established prior to Maulana Karenga, and then he stole the idea and then started claiming that he created the holiday. So there's a whole true story behind that. February 2nd, midpoint, quote unquote, Groundhog's Day for Europeans. Midwinter, the plant is starting to rise up after germinating before it breaks through the surface of the soil. And we have a sacred observance, cultural observance, which is Black History Month. That is an ancestral observance. So when we did that presentation, we were talking about the different sacred cultural observances that we have. This is one of these original Juneteenth observances, which is an original summer solstice observance for people who practice hoodoo and juju and voodoo and wanga and so forth in North America. We have Black August, where we honor like Nkumfo Yao, Nat Turner, Ogufo Geb, Gabriel Prosser, and so forth, people like that. The Hoodoo New Year, which is September, the New Year for Akan people in North America. You have the Voodoo New Year, see Voodoo Queen Galinda Laveau in New Orleans and so forth. She has the Voodoo Conjure Fest at that time and so forth every year. We talked about Kwanzaa in that previous presentation. So, Nana Abena Aramita, Harriet Tubman, Nana Kwame Afrani, George Washington Carver, and so forth. So, when we're talking about Black history or Ebibifo, Black people, Abako Sem, true story of history, and so forth. These are some of the, observances that we deal with and people that we recognize, and also through spirit communication that we ritually evoke. So the Memorial Day holiday, Decoration Day, May 1st, sacred midpoint in our sacred calendar. This is what we're dealing with. On our Nhoma page, our publications page, Nhoma is the Akan term for books or publications. So all 31 of our books, we started making them free downloads back 11 years ago when the first books were out, and we continued to publish and so forth. Over the years, we've published 31 books. All 31 books, the ebook versions, we made free. You go to the page, scroll down, you'll see the front covers of each one of the books. And when you click on the cover, you download the book. So that's on that page. But we also did just recently, in March, we released our anthology, ODWIRASEM, Trustorical Anthology. And that is this book right here. So what ODWIRASEM is a 600-page book, 8.5 by 11. It's full color. And we're going to look at some of the information in here. But what it is a anthology. It's a collection of 12 of the 31 books. And we recently expanded on these 12 books. We included them, all 12 of them, in one anthology. So the new expanded version is in this book, and you can order it directly from our website. We have an automatic 30% discount for those who are our subscribers when you go to our page. Because on Amazon, you can get it on Amazon, but it costs more on Amazon because Amazon charges, they charge a lot more for printing. So we can offer it at a discount on our website. That's for our subscribers and followers, subscribers on YouTube, followers on Instagram and, social media, Twitter, and all of that. But on the page, you will see the book. When you click on you see the description and so forth. You see the 12 books. And let me make sure you can see this. Okay. Let me click over. You go to the Buy Now section. I just want to show you the discount and also the payment option. So again, it's 600 pages in full color. It's $55 plus shipping. And it's $55, Amazon charges, a lot for printing in color. So we have to charge more, but it's $55, but it's 600 pages, 8.5 by 11. So it's an encyclopedia size book. We needed to do it in color because of the images of the different divinities, the sacred ritual colors that you need to see. But we do have a payment option where you can have a split payment option. And when you check out, and you can go to the site now, and I'll put the link in the chat room. You'll see you can check out, you can choose Afterpay. And Afterpay is an option where you just pay $15.75 today. And then it's split up into 4 payments. The other 3 payments of $15.75 you will pay over time. But you can order the book today for $15.75 for that down payment. And then we ship it out to you. And then you pay Afterpay. Like every few weeks, you pay the next $15.75 payment. So that way it's easier, having that option for people. If you couldn't pay $55 up front, you can pay $15.75 to place your order. So let me put that link in the chat room right quick. And it's on the Nhoma page, but also, let me just post it so you can see it. Okay. Now, we also have, I mentioned that we have our Akongwa institution. And we have a couple of things going on. So you may have seen, if you've been following us, okay, there's a question in the chat room. So the start of our new year is in December, according to the Northern Hemisphere. We are so that is December is the winter solstice. So for our people, the new year typically is either the spring equinox or the autumn equinox for our Khan people, and some others, the conception point, September 22nd, the end of the warm cycle and the beginning of the cool cycle. That's the harvest time when you harvest the fruits of your labor and so forth, but you also take out the seeds to plant. So planting the seeds, that's the conception time. That is September 22nd. The autumn equinox, that is our New Year's Day. For certain people, March 20th, the spring equinox, certain groups, Black people will say spring, the sprouting time, that's the beginning of the new year. So it's those two, but the winter solstice is never the beginning of the new year, just like, January 1st in the dark and dead of night is not the beginning. That's absurd. Okay. So Akongwa is our institution. We started back in 13,001, so-called 2001. Over time, we have curated and taught 42 online courses. This is a collage of those courses. But when you go on the page and scroll down, you'll see the original flyers for each one of those courses. And all of them are available as archives. Many of them were 6-week courses. Some of them were 4-week courses and so forth. Give you an example. The Aperu course, for example, was a 4-week course. It's available as archives. Hebrews never existed. Cosmology of the crossover and command. So we show how the fictional group of characters called Hebrews were manufactured. They never existed. There were no Black Hebrews. There were no white Hebrews. Just like there was no Jesus, Moses, Muhammad, all those different characters. We go into detail proving that in that course, linguistically, cosmologically, trustorically, and so forth. But So when you click on that, that was a 4-week course, and our 4-week courses were $20, but now that they're archived, you'll see that it's $10. We did a 6-week course on res, etymology, biology, cosmology, and divinity of quote unquote race, the spirit genetic identity of our people. Race comes from the ancient Kemetic term res, and it talks about the root people, and this is the actual nikeb plant root, which is the res plant and so forth. And we talk about, color associated with spiritual disposition, which goes back to the great quote unquote hymn of the Aten written by Akhenaten, talking about how Ra put different colored skin people, meaning black people, dark brown people with red undertones, dark brown people with black undertones, and so forth, in different parts of the world, and their skins represent their different disposition. So the term race and the cosmology, there's a male deity called Res, a female deity called Resit, and so forth. It means the root people from the beginning, their origins and so forth. So when we talk about the etymological origin of race, but also the biology, cosmology, and divinity, and also the difference between us as the res people and the whites and their offspring, non-black people who are a degeneration of the original. Just like you can have healthy cells and some become cancerous and disfigured, they no longer look like the others, and they no longer function as the others. They only seek to consume and destroy the others. That's why they must be eradicated. So we did a 6-week course on that, studied the language, cosmology, trustery, spirituality, and so forth. But we have 42 online courses dealing with various aspects of our culture. So you can access those at any time. But what we've also done is 2 separate things. Two of those courses are certification courses, SUSUW and Karakasa. The SUSUW course is the Meditation Instructor Certification. It's a 4-week course, but now we have it in archive. So taking that course, you get certified through that 4-week course to conduct meditation sessions. Once you have that credential or certification, you can go to places of employment, schools, organizations, nonprofit, for-profit, and conduct meditation sessions with the adults, with the employees, with youth and so forth, in schools, after school programs, homeless shelters, women's shelters, human services organizations, cultural organizations, community, workforce development organizations, and so forth. Alcohol Anonymous, Gambling Anonymous, when they have groups and they bring someone in to conduct a short 10 or 15-minute meditation session before they start their group to keep them more focused and so forth. People tend to pay $100, $200 for a short half-an-hour session. Once they see you have a certificate and your credential, you can engage in self-employment. So this is why we've been teaching SUSUW, the Akan term for meditation, for 20 years. Been practicing for 30, showing that it comes from ancient Afuraitkaitnut, Africa. You see Amenhotep, the son of Hapu, sitting here in the meditative posture. Predates India by thousands of years. So we started the certification process last year, as opposed to just teaching it, certifying people so you can go out and you have a credential so you can engage in self-employment. You can do that. You can take the archive course at any time just by going to the website. I'll put that link in the chat room, but we also have something in addition to that. So you can sign up for that today and start that process. And once you can go through those 4 sessions, go through the practices and the books and everything, the books are free downloads. And once you're ready to test out on that, we have a Zoom session, go through the information just to make sure that you understand the philosophy and everything else. And then we send you your certificate. So you can do that within a couple of weeks. You can do it in 4 weeks, like the original plan was the 4 weeks. You could do it in 2 weeks if you want to. Depends on how soon you complete, those sessions and go through the information. And then you can utilize it to generate income. Now, in addition to that, we've incorporated that within our separate degree program. These are the 42 courses once again. And what we have established is our Bachelor of Arts in Philosophy within our institution, Akongwa. And once again, it's designed for you once you go through that process. Once you complete that process, you have the credential Bachelor of Arts in Philosophy, and you can use that credential to teach in various places. And we have we have a list of different places and organizations, the kinds of organizations you can use that credential to engage in self-employment immediately. So let's click on that so you can see exactly what we're talking about. We just recently did a presentation, and let's get back to that. Okay, so just so you can see, Akongwa Institution, Bachelor of Arts in Philosophy, the Akan term is NIMDEESEM. Now, we just did, a few days ago, we did a presentation. It's an hour and 20 minutes, and we go through the entire curriculum, just like it takes, on average, about 40 courses for you to obtain a degree, a Bachelor of Arts degree in philosophy in any major university or college. We have 42 courses that we have curated over the past, since 13,001. So these past 25 years and so forth, publishing this information, curating this information, taking it across the country and so forth, teaching youth as well as adults, as well as outside of the country. And going through that process, we curated these 42 courses. And our 42 courses, when we talk about philosophy, we're not talking about some outdated, misinformed Greco-Roman philosophy and so forth. We're talking about Afuraitkaitnut, African ancestral culture and philosophy, which is the foundation of what came out of Greece and Rome and India and China and so forth, although those are corruptions. But you get a full, grounding in philosophical understanding, the root of our culture. But then you can utilize that information and utilize that degree to engage in self-employment immediately. That SUSUW course, the Meditation Instructor certification course, is included within the degree program. So whether you wanted to take the SUSUW course on its own and just say, I want to sign up for that tonight and do that, and within the next 2 weeks, I get my certification and I can start going out and teaching and getting paid to teach. You could do that. Or if you want to sign up for the degree program, 42 weeks, but it can be done in less than 42 weeks, but the maximum is a 42-week program for 42 courses. We go over the 31 books as well as the 100 plus articles, as well as other information that is not yet published that we have and so forth. So it's a lot of different, information. But if you prefer to take that and get your degree and so forth, the bachelor's degree, and start engaging in self-employment with that, you can do that. But even if you want to take the degree program, the first course within the degree program is the SUSUW course. So your first test, you go through the SUSUW course first. Out of all 42 courses, the SUSUW course is first. So you would test on that one first within the first week or two. You would pass that test, get your certificate, and you can go out and start making money while you're going through the next 40 weeks of the other 41 courses. So whether you want to take the SUSUW course now and get certified within the first couple of weeks and just be a meditation instructor, certified instructor, and just do that, fine. If people want to go further, and if you prefer to not just be an instructor, but also you want your bachelor's degree in philosophy and utilize that, you can do that as well. Now, what's important for us is economic development, economic opportunity, and so forth. So again, we talked about the details of the course in that edupreneur piece. And in fact, let me show you just the image so you can see it, so you know what I'm talking about. and then we'll get back to I just want you to see this image. This is on this YouTube page, the last major presentation we did. It's an hour and 20 minutes. And we were explaining this notion of the edupreneur. We're going to talk about that in a few seconds, but we did a presentation. In that presentation, we went through the entire curriculum and details about the degree in philosophy and so forth, and all of that. So you can check that out. We don't have to go through all of that right now. I just want to finish up this session with this information, but I just want you to see that. So we talk about the origins going back to 13,001, so-called 2001. Then we started the online branch of the institution in 13,014, so-called 2014. That's been 11 years and so forth. And then we developed these courses and so forth, 42 courses in alignment with the 42 assessors of Ma'at, which you're going to learn about, the 40 Sepatu, administrative divisions in Kemet, the 42 days, as we talked about, of the Akan calendar, which is called Adadrian, the sacred ritual calendar. But just like any other, university organization, college, university, they between 39 and 40 courses is what you need to take in order to obtain your bachelor's degree. Now, we talk about the origin of the term NIMDEESEM. So you have an Akan term, even though your diploma will say Bachelor of Arts in Philosophy, but also you will see the Akan term NIMDEESEM as well. The maximum is 42 weeks. You will complete all 42 courses in 42 weeks, but some people will want to do 2 courses per week, test out for 2 courses in a week. So they could do the entire program in 21 weeks if you do 2 tests per week. So you take the course, then we have a Zoom meeting and we test you on the information. You pass the test. You can either do that once a week for 42 weeks for each one of the 42 courses, or you could do 2 tests per week, and then you complete the program in 21 weeks, and you have your bachelor's degree in 21 weeks, as long as you pass all the tests. Or some people may want to do 2 weeks sometimes and 1 week another time, so you may complete all 42 courses, say, in 30 weeks. It depends, but the minimum is 21 weeks. We're not going to test more than 2 courses in a week. So the minimum is a 21-week span, and you go through all 42 courses. The maximum is 42. But you will go through all of those courses, get all of that information. You have access to the 31 books. We're going to give you the other articles and other information, supporting and so forth. You're going to have much more information than anybody you come in contact with who has a degree in philosophy. You're going to be way ahead of them, whether they have a bachelor's, master's, or PhD. And people with PhDs have taken our courses, and they've told us the information they've gotten here is more than anything they learned when they went through all those years of getting a PhD in those colleges. And, the first couple of years anyway are just elective courses and core courses and so forth. So you don't really get into the major until the final 2 years. And then they're taking you through information that most of which is not relevant. So we talk about registration and so forth. It's open to Black people only, of course, exclusively. Then we talk about this notion of the edupreneur. This is a burgeoning field, emerging field, the educational entrepreneur. So instead of going to school and getting a degree and then just trying to get a job teaching at a college, people have started moving toward the edupreneur, phase. And we have the definitions you'll see different definitions of that, but you take your degree and you start engaging in entrepreneurial activity immediately. So we have a list of paid opportunities available with Bachelor of Arts in Philosophy, NIMDEESEM degree. And we talked about some of them. We worked in the field of behavioral health for over a decade. You can utilize that. Groups like Alcoholics Anonymous, Gamblers Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, they have group meetings where they sit and they have, group discussions on a daily basis or weekly basis. Sometimes the therapist will say, we want somebody to come in and talk about African culture and philosophy and the resilience of that and how that's part of our innate movement in the world. And when we incorporate those principles, we become more disciplined. We can overcome these different issues and so forth. We become empowered, motivated, changes the entire mindset. So they bring people out who are credentialed. Hey, come sit in our group on Thursday. We'll pay you $150 just to sit with our group for a half an hour. And if they like what you do, they may bring you out once a month. Hey, I want you to sit with our AA group once a month on Wednesdays or Thursdays. We'll pay you $150 just for that half an hour piece. If you have a few of those groups in the city or even, a neighboring suburb and so forth, you can make $600 or $700 a month just by doing a half an hour, discussion in a group. That's something you can do immediately. And I just want to show you a few more of these opportunities so you can see how you can impact the community in a positive capacity, but also engage in entrepreneurship right away. So you don't have to wait for somebody to give you, a job. You can create your own. So those various kinds of groups, you can do that. Women's shelters and family shelters, they have group sessions for those in their programs to motivate the participants to find employment, find housing, break the cycle of returning to domestic abuse, homelessness, etc. Funds are allocated to pay various presenters on various topics, including holistic health, meditation, culture, philosophy, which is critical to shaping participants' self-worth and confidence, and more. They typically pay credentialed speakers between $100 and $300 per presentation. So again, and we've done this, we've gone into these different shelters, family shelters, homeless shelters. They have the women in different programs. They have them sitting with a therapist. They have group sessions. Hey, can you come out and talk to our group? We'll pay you $300 just to, give that piece. And if they like what you do, they may bring you out once a month to the different groups. You set up a few of those, a few different organizations. Now you can generate $1,000 a month just by giving a few presentations. And as you go through the list, you'll see that employers, they have different cultural events. They'll have a little committee that deals with holidays and so forth, and they do presentations. They have money set aside already in the budget. So they have to bring someone out, and they're looking for somebody. Hey, do you know somebody who can speak on Martin Luther King's holiday? We're going to have a little event at work. Do you know somebody who can come out and speak? Somebody with a credential. As long as they have a credential, we'll pay them. They can come and do a 20-minute presentation, 15-minute presentation. You come out and talk about that, but you weave in that ancestral culture and philosophy in anything you do. Black History Month, places all over the country, all over your city, organizations, employers, as well as cultural organizations, schools, and everything else. They want people to present. They have to have people to present. You have that credential, they will bring you out. Memorial Day, which we just saw, is Decoration Day. Many more Black people are finding out that Memorial Day was originally our holiday, and they're having presentations on that day, and people are off work and they go to events, and some people have cookouts and everything else, but they have people coming teaching culture. They have vending events and everything else and have people speak. Juneteenth is now popular. They have events everywhere. Employers have that. They say, do you know someone who can speak? We have a couple $100 set aside for speakers for events like this. You can go out and do that. Black August is becoming more and more popular over the past 30 plus years. People have events all throughout August teaching about, true story, culture, and everything else. And the same thing with Kwanzaa. So different employers have these committees they set aside, or their Black employees get together and have something. They have, the petty cash and so forth set aside to pay presenters. And you're one of those people now that you're credentialed that you can generate income doing that. Some people, that's all that they do. They've been doing this kind of thing for 20 years. They just go to different places who need a cultural presenter. They present, people like that, and they call these people back every year. So every month, whether it's January, MLK, February, different Black History Month pieces, Memorial Day, May, June, August, September around the equinox. A lot of people are doing equinox and solstice celebrations. Black people are starting to do that. Different organizations, cultural organizations, are having something every month. Some people simply speak every month, and people bring them back every year to come to their event. Sometimes people say, can you come every other week? But some people, they simply use their cultural knowledge that empowers people, that, benefits our people. They use that to employ themselves 100%. Of course, if you are interested in working with youth, schools, and after-school programs, schools are bringing people in now to teach meditation sessions at the beginning of the day. It helps them with behavior, helps the children be focused. So right after the bell, they have them meditate for 5 or 10 minutes after the morning bell, as well as after the lunch bell. After school programs do the same thing. They teach children meditation so they're more focused, more disciplined, anxiety is reduced, depression is reduced, and so forth. Weekend programs for youth, summer programs for youth. You also have cultural organizations, African Center bookstores, businesses, organizations, conferences, cultural events, spiritual events, study groups, and so forth. All of those things, they look for people who have knowledge. Hey, we want somebody to come out and speak on the origin of Memorial Day, the Black origin of Memorial Day. The presentation we just did tonight, you could take portions of that and create a 15, 20-minute presentation, as well as the information you learned in the class with regard to ancestral philosophy and culture. Put together a 20-minute presentation, half-hour presentation, and you can go to multiple Memorial Day events and teach people that this was founded by our people. And they will pay for that because they have the money set aside already. They're already paying people, and they're paying people who don't have accurate information. Most people don't know about Black people starting Memorial Day. Most people don't know about, truth about ancient Khanid and Kemet and ancestral culture and religion and philosophy founded with our people and so forth. They don't know about that. So, but they're paying people already who are giving half good information and a lot of misinformation. When they see that you have that credential, they'll shift those funds over to you. Of course, you can host your own events. You can rent out a community center, conference room, and so forth, like $50 for an hour or two. Have people come out, do a presentation. You can have books there that you sell, like you purchase some books wholesale and sell them. You could have some food, vegan food or something, snacks or something, or vegan juices or something that you can sell to generate money. You can ask people to contribute $5. You can conduct a meditation session. You can do whatever you like, but you can host your own events. People come out, support the events, become empowered, even conducting meditation sessions that helps to lower stress, lower anxiety, assists with weight loss, discipline, focus, dietary practices. All kinds of things are beneficial with regard to SUSUW or meditation, and you will have that credential with the philosophy degree. So, okay. So once again, with this one also, let me make sure you can see this. Okay, and with our degree here as well, same as with the book. The degree itself is the entire bachelor's degree program, $600. The books and so forth are all included, of course. We have the afterpay option where you can split that up into 4 interest-free payments. So when you go, you click afterpay, as you see right here, and 4 interest-free payments of $150. So if you don't have the amount up front, you can pay $150 to start, and you start the courses, and then you pay afterpay, over the next, couple of months and so forth. They have their own, schedule with regard to that. So when you choose afterpay, they give you the schedule and all of that. But starting off, up front, you would only have to make that first payment, and the other 3 is stretched out over time. Same thing with the book. So, but as you can see with that, let me just scroll back up. Is that within it's $600, but when you get paid to do a meditation session or sit with a group and they pay you $200 to do that, or you go to a event and teach about, Black August or Black History Month or whatever it is, within the first month and a half, you will have generated that $600 and covered your tuition up front. As a matter of fact, if you start off with a degree program and you pay the $150 with Afterpay and you start taking the classes, the first class, as I said, you take is the SUSUW course, and you receive your certification in that first class. So within the first 2 weeks, you'll be certified to conduct meditation sessions. And therefore, the first one you book, if you go to a group home or you go to a human services organization, go to a school, after school program, place of employment and so forth, and they say, hey, we're going to pay you $200 to conduct this session, or we want you to come, once a week on Thursdays to teach our youth and so forth. They pay you a couple $100. After the first couple of months, you have paid off your tuition. In fact, you get the $150 back. And every time you need to make a payment for Afterpay, at that point, you would have done another session and covered that. So we did that that's the specific reason. When we see the edupreneur piece, this is the way the program is modeled. The way it's structured is you get the information, all 42 courses, 31 books, 100 plus, articles and so forth, including the documentary films and more information. And once you're empowered with all that, we want you to immediately go out and start generating income immediately. Not waiting for somebody to, hire you somewhere and you trying to compete with other people for jobs. You have a credential. There are a number of different opportunities we've listed and that we can point out, and you can start working immediately so you can generate income and empower our people at the same time. So that's the reason we structured it in that way. Okay, so that's the information we wanted to share. If you're not on our email list, you can get on our email list. Just, hit us up. In fact, let me put the email list here. kwesiakhan@gmail.com. If you're not on the email list, we'll put you on the email list so you can get all the updates. You can see our page for the most recent presentations. Okay, yes, so we're going to receive another shipment. This week, we're going to receive another shipment for the books. And so what we do is people order the books and we order them. We order them from Amazon. Amazon prints the book. So there are 2 ways to get the book. You can get it on Amazon, but it's $75 on Amazon, $75 on Amazon. And that's because Amazon charges a lot just to print in color. If the book was, like in black and white, and if it was smaller, it would be much less. I could sell it for 40 something. But since it's in color, it costs a lot more. So for example, and you can look on the Amazon publisher's site, the Kindle publisher's site, and look at the royalty calculator, and you'll see why when people sell their books on Amazon, they have to charge a little bit more. So for example, because my book is 8.5 by 11, it's large, it's encyclopedia size, and it's 600 pages, and it's in color. Those specs alone, if I was to sell the book for $50, no, if I was to sell the book for $55, I would get less than $6 per book. That's because of the, how much they charge for printing. And then they take 30%. I'm sorry, 40% off the top. So just like you have, if you go into a bookstore and you had a book that's $10 and you want to sell your book in the bookstore and they say, okay, well, we're going to buy it wholesale and then we'll sell it retail. They take 40% off the top. So if it's a $10 book, you sell it to them, they take 40% off the top. So you have to sell it to them for $6. They give you $6 for your book. They sell it for $10. They paid you $6. So they sell it for $10, they get their $6 back, and then they make $4 off the book. So every time they get $10, they give you $6 and they keep $4. So that's how bookstores do. Distributors, they take 60% and you keep 40%. The bookstores, they take 40% and you keep 60. Distributors, they take 60% and you get 40. Amazon takes 60% off the top and you get 40. But out of that 40%, they also charge you for, printing. Each book itself, this book, because of its size and color and everything, it costs $26 to print one book. Now, if it was, and then they take 60% off the price. That's why on Amazon, I have to charge $75, but on my website, I can charge $55, plus shipping, but I can charge $55 because we can order at a cheaper price when we, order them ourselves directly from them and so forth. So that's why we had to do it that way. So when people order, their number of orders come in, then we make an order for Amazon. It takes them, sometimes it takes them a couple of weeks to ship it. Sometimes it takes them a week. It just depends on their schedule. And once they ship them out to us, then we ship them out to you. That's how we're doing it right now. So we should be getting another shipment in later this week, and then we can ship them out. Okay. So any other questions on any of that? Any information that we went through? Okay, so when you look in the chat room, you'll see we have and also in the description box of the video, if you like to take like one or two of the courses, like a $10 course or whatever, like the Akongwa Suya courses, let me switch back to that real quick, just to test it out and see, if you like it or if you're interested in something further. So when you go to the Akongwa Suya page, this is the page, you scroll down. We have the advertisement for the book as well, but you'll see the Bachelor of Arts in Philosophy portion. But when you scroll further down, you'll see the flyers of all the different courses, as we said before. And as we said, each one, the 4-week courses are $10, 6-week courses are $15. So if you wanted to take a 4-week course of one of the 6-week courses, for example, the NIMDEESEM, Authentic Numerology of the Deities, which is different from what the Whites and Offspring talk about. If you wanted to take the Karakasa course or Ankh Kara course, one of our books is Ankh, the origin of the term yoga, Karakasa, the origin and nature of the chakra, where we show that Ankh and chakra or kakra came from the language of ancient Khanid and Kemet. That course is a 6-week course, so that's just a $15 course. So if you wanted to check it out and said, hey, I want to check that out, you can go right now, scroll down to that, click that. It's a $15 course. And then we send you the archives, and plus that includes the links for the books that you download to read. And you can go through that whole 6-week course at your own pace just to see what you like. And, we have 42 of those courses, and they're all on that page. So whether you did it that way, or if you wanted to, start let me switch over right quick. So all 42 courses are on that page. I'm sorry, 40 of those courses are on that page. That's the Akongwa Suya page. And the meditation instructor certification course. That's on a separate page, and let me put that page in there for you. Okay, so the SUSUW course, Meditation Instructor Certification, that's part 1. And then there's the Karakasa course, which is level 2 of that same course. But this one is part 1. That is a certification course. So if you wanted to get certified as a meditation instructor, you can take that, the archived version. You can complete that within a week or 2. Then you reach out to us. We go through the Zoom, session to go over the information to make sure you understand and so forth. And then we certify you. And then you have that credential, and you can go out and start teaching and generating income for yourself. So that certification course, the meditation instructor certification, that's a certification course. So it's tested and so forth. So that one costs more. But the other 42 courses, all of them are either $10 or $15. A couple of them are like 20 because they were like 7-week courses. One of them is 44 because it was a 13-week course, the manhood course and the womanhood course and so forth. But those are just courses that people will periodically take. Hey, I want to take a $10 course just because I'm interested in this information. That's what those 40 courses are. The 2 certification courses, that has to do with the credential and being certified and being tested. So that one costs more. But we also have the payment plan for that. And then the Akongwasuya is the bachelor's degree. All 42, the 40 on that other page, the 2 certification here, all together in 1 degree. Go through all of them, maximum 42 weeks, minimum 21 weeks, and we move forward. Okay, so that's all I had for you all for tonight. If you have any questions, hit us up. You can go to our page now. We had somebody just take one of the Aperu, the 4-week Hebrews Never Existed course. They saw the presentation, bought it the same night, and they really appreciate the fact because they thought the Hebrews were Black, and that was part of our ancient lineage. Hebrews never existed. You look at the Kukutuntum course, and that's included when you get the book, we talk about Jesus never existed, Moses never existed, Abraham, Isaac, Ishmael, Solomon, Sheba, Menelik never existed, and so forth. Here we talk about, for example, the fictional character Muhammad, who never existed. The deity Muhammad, the waters of the northern Nile, is who they corrupted into the fictional character Muhammad. Fictional character Yahweh, we showed that the deity Yah in ancient Kemet, operating through the moon, is a male deity Yah, female deity Yahweh, and so forth, that operates through the moon and so forth. They took the name of that moon divinity on the masculine side and manufactured the fictional character Yahweh. So all of the biblical characters, the ones in the Quran, Allah as well, in the Talmud and so forth, the Torah, fictional characters, same with Hinduism and Buddhism. So that information is in the book as well. So if you want to get that information in the book, when you look on the book page, you will see the 12 books that are part of the anthology and all the information that's in the book. We also did a presentation on everything that's in the book. You can see that presentation right here. So, okay. So again, Yerase, we thank everybody for tuning in. And Yebeshi Abio, we will meet again. That's it.